All right. I'm here with Vanessa Whiteside. How are you doing, Vanessa?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a native Wichitan, now book author, a longtime writer slash sometimes journalist. No, no, I'm just a proud Wichitan.
Sure. So have you been in Wichita the whole time or did you move away for a period of time? I think that's the common theme I hear is people moved away.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I wonder what you hear. I bet you hear that a few people moved away, like me, and for whatever reason, they had a compelling reason to move back.
Mm-hmm.
I did that twice. Good luck getting me to leave again.
Yeah.
Completely sold on Wichita. No, I did move away twice. Once for college. I
Mm-hmm.
went to AU for journalism school.
Okay.
And then I moved to Colorado after seeing the mountains for the first time.
Yeah,
And
that's reasonable.
I had to go, just like the saying says. I had to go. So I was there for 3 years, but then I came right back.
For sure. Yeah, I think if we were going to move somewhere, we always say we'd move to Colorado Springs. I do have some family, some cousins, aunt and uncles there, but also we just love the mountains. It's like just far enough. You don't have to drive like hours into the mountains. You're like right on the edge, but you kind of get the beauty of it. Yeah.
Sure. No, I completely get that. And part of me just wants to convince you to never say those words again. However, I completely understand the
Well,
need.
we will never move, but if we did, that's where we'd go. So,
Okay, gotcha.
so where did you go to high school at?
Oh, Wichita Southeast. I'm a
Okay.
proud golden buffalo.
I don't think we've had many golden buffaloes on the podcast, so I like to get a wide array. It's been funny. There's been a disproportionate number of North High. I don't know what their mascot is now. Former Redskins. There was a
Right.
lot of North High alum, so I like to get a
Yeah.
spread. Southeast, good.
And if you're a female, you're a lady buff.
Okay, there we go. Now I know. The more you know.
Yeah.
So you were into journalism in college. You majored in journalism. What was your goal? Did you want to go work for like newspapers? What was your dream?
Oh, this is such a good question. Nobody has asked me this lately. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I got my start in high school journalism and I worked up the ranks like from like freshman reporter to editor-in-chief my senior year. So by the time I was ready to graduate, I was just chomping at the bit to go work for any print publication, which at the time was like the norm.
Sure.
There was like no digital.
Sure.
There wasn't social media at the time. So I really like telling stories in written form. So I wanted to go into magazine journalism. So I pursued that at KU.
Oh, very cool. And then what was your first job out of school then?
Sure. So out of school, gosh, I actually came home to Wichita for a while and like thought maybe I want to be a journalism teacher. And then I got sidetracked by those mountains. So there was like a little detour thing happening. But all along the way, I was, I took whatever writing opportunity came to me. So if someone said, hey, you might be good at writing this little column or making our newsletter, I would do things like that until I finally arrived at like doing other like permanent journalism related things. Yeah.
Sure. Did you have a favorite kind of gig along the way? Was there like a certain publication you really enjoyed writing for or anything?
I think any publication that let me tell the story of the human experience was like my favorite. Sure. I mean, I just keep telling the human story. And so like, even right now you're interviewing me and I'm thinking about like the questions, like the story.
Oh, I can't
turn it off.
Yeah.
It's just my favorite thing to do. And, with this book and with the work I've been doing lately, it's like, that's really what it comes down to is I'm getting to know people better and like why they do what they do. And then how we get to have all these great things to do because of these great people.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's a big reason why I do this podcast. I think a lot of it is it's cool. I love that I get to kind of, hopefully amplify some of these stories so people that may not have otherwise heard them. Not that this is a huge platform, but at the end of the day, like if one person or no people listen to this, at least I'm getting to meet you. And it's like, it's cool to like hear more about your story. Like we've seen each other at a lot of events lately, but I don't really know your story. So it's cool to get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel the same about you. Like I've seen you around. I'm very aware of like all the hard work that you put in, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, I don't really know Landon.
Right. So. Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I love doing these podcasts. You should start a podcast. You could tell the stories even more.
I don't know. Like people keep telling me that since I have this journalism background. I'm like, do I have time for that? Like how time consuming is it? And like, Am I ready? I don't
I mean, it
know.
could be as little or as much as you want. Like this is a Zoom. I mean, there's better quality stuff you could do. You could ratchet
Yeah.
it up, but you could literally, like, we're recording this on Zoom. Immediately after this, you could just not edit it and put it on YouTube if you wanted to, and you could be done. That could be your podcast. So
I mean, I can do that.
exactly, the bar is not too high. So and you can ratchet it up as you want, but yeah, so not too bad.
But Lynn, you're doing a really good job. So I need to find my own niche,
Oh, thank you,
I
thank
gotta
you.
think about this for a minute.
I mean, yours is kind of all over. I mean, One Delightful Life, you're kind of going all over Kansas. So I mean, there's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I honestly don't even know like how that happened, but when it did, I was glad for it. I mean, I didn't know that, and you're not the only person to say like you're like the Kansas blogger, which
Yeah,
I very much appreciate because there's several Midwestern and Kansas writers that focus on the state.
sure.
But it's nice to hear that. And I just one opportunity led to the other, and before you knew it, I was like, oh, I've got like 30 underneath my belt. Let's
Sure.
just go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more. So One Delightful Life, tell me about the origin of that, how that got started and all that.
Sure. So I was teaching high school English and journalism at Circle High School in Towanda, Kansas.
Mhm.
That's the job that drew me back from Colorado.
Okay.
And so I was living in Wichita, commuting to Towanda and teaching out there for about 7 years. And somewhere during that time, I decided that I needed to scratch that itch to do my own, some kind of writing, right?
Sure.
So I've been writing my whole life in some form. So I just thought, well, I'm going to write what I cook about. I'm going to write where I travel. And this, I started paying attention to other people doing the same thing. Very saturated market, very
Yeah.
saturated industry. So how do you differentiate yourself?
Sure.
I didn't even care. I was just like doing it for fun as a hobby.
Right.
And at some point I started paying attention to like YouTube videos and Pinterest pins, like, oh, people are like monetizing this. There is income to be had here. And I'm a teacher and I make like zero income
Right.
after like 7 years.
Sure.
So how can I like make this a side hustle? And then I figured out how to eventually do that. And so anyway, it worked out really well. I've been doing it for over 6 years now, and it became passive income that has worked out in my
Sure.
favor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a couple of things, but so what all do you cover? So I think on your website it says a lifestyle blog, so that can cover a lot. How do you break that down? Do you look at it as kind of all encompassing, or do you focus like, okay, this week I'm going to write, maybe focus on travel, this week, I don't know, food or whatever it is?
You're so good to think that I write something every week, because I do not.
Whatever that looks like. I shoot for 2 podcasts a month, and it's like 2 podcasts every other 3 months or something.
Yeah,
So
I mean, honestly, like we have day jobs, so we have to like be like realistic about this, right? So so the short answer is I do the best I can, and I try to cover as much ground as I can. It became a lifestyle blog because I was writing about food and travel and like best practices for a good daily life, hence One Delightful Life.
Sure.
Make it the best of every moment. And at some point I just kind of like, oh, everybody's calling it a lifestyle blog, so that's what I'll call it.
Sure.
Well, along the way, I kept getting offers to do paid travel or sponsored travel of some sort. And I realized it's really evolving into travel. I mean, I don't even know why I have the food recipes up there anymore, other than I just can't bring them down because I worked so hard on them.
Sure. Yeah.
And at this point, I'm just like, well, maybe I'll blog about a recipe next Saturday. And then I never do. So it may end up being a different subtitle, but I think it will always be One Delightful Life because it still applies.
No, I love that. Yeah. I think it can apply to so many different things. So you said people started reaching out for paid travel. What does that look like? Are they paying, like, is it like you get a flat rate and then they cover like hotels or whatever? What does that look like?
Sure. So in my experience, it has been that you have to prove yourself. And so someone early on said you need to make another blogger said you need to make a media kit if you really want to sell yourself and pitch to brands, to companies, hotels, visitors bureaus, whomever. I did that. And so that's all dependent upon website clicks, followers, and all your platforms and all that. And so I worked really hard to develop content that wasn't paid, that got those numbers that were decent, right? And then once I had a media kit, I felt a little bit more comfortable about pitching myself to chambers or CVBs or, whomever.
Hmm.
But I will tell you that early on, I got an okay, like, let's do this from Visit Omaha. And it was like,
Nice.
oh my gosh, it's not even in my state. This is so great. And to be completely transparent for how this industry goes, because I was early on in the process, it was for trade, right?
Sure.
We'll pay for your hotel. We'll meet you at the hotel. We'll give you the gift box and the bag or whatever. It's going to have your vouchers in it for the zoo and for the restaurants and all the things. And I was like,
it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
and I get to write about it. No problem. Fast forward to actually want to make like some living out of all the hours I'm putting in when I come home.
No, I get that. Yeah.
Hours of writing, and you know how this goes.
Oh yeah.
So
You can't pay your rent or your mortgage with gift cards to a restaurant in Omaha.
That's exactly right. And I think and I completely respect it because that was me for a while, but there is a point where you have to ask yourself as a paid freelancer, like, what's my tipping point here? And if I keep this up, it only makes it harder for people in my industry trying to do the same thing, right?
For
We're
sure,
trying to deliver a message that we deserve to be compensated financially for what we do, not just given coupons and discounts and gift cards.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, especially if you're going to drive your car to somewhere really far away.
Right.
So that was my first one. And then, eventually I just kept pitching, and I got some more local things, which developed into more like statewide job.
Yeah, for sure. How has it, besides obviously kind of switching from maybe the food recipes to more travel stuff, how else has the blog kind of evolved or changed over time?
One thing that hasn't changed is that it's always included my opinion, which I'm proud of.
Good. Yeah.
I come from a place when I'm in a restaurant or a new town that I always, again, back to that one delightful life is like, what's the best thing that's happening here? What's the good thing I can have? And that does, or, report on it. Doesn't mean that it's, my food didn't take a long time to come to the table or everything wasn't perfect. It's just that it's, here's the best experience you're going to have, and I want to present it in the light that I can that's positive.
Right.
So that's always included my opinion. Ways that it's changed is that I think it was like I'm more adventurous now. Like I think back to some of the things I did in the last year where I was solo traveling and I would never have done that before.
Yeah.
Like jumping in my car and driving hundreds of miles alone to places that were like, if it wasn't for Google Maps, I don't know.
Right. Where's the farthest place you've gone? I mean, Omaha is like what, 4.5 or 5 hours? Have you gone further than that, or is that the farthest?
For the blog?
Yeah.
It's just Midwestern, like just surrounding states and stuff. I mean, I have blogged, but unpaid, about like places like Mexico and New York State.
Sure.
Well, actually, I got paid to blog about when I was in New York, but anyway.
That's awesome. No, that's cool. I'm glad you're getting paid for it. That's awesome. If you introduce yourself, do you introduce yourself as like a blogger or a writer or an influencer? What do you prefer as your label?
Man, you're asking such good questions tonight.
It's all questions that I think through because we're in the same kind of industry. So you blog a lot better and more than I do, but same industry.
Honestly, Landon, it's like for a long time I called myself like a blogger. And then when I was writing about travel, I called myself a travel blogger. And then I realized that, I don't know, I guess I belong to these Facebook groups and stuff, and I talk to other people in the industry, and they're like, something about bloggers has like a negative connotation to it. And I don't know how that happened, other than maybe there were some like people that were being not authentic or not true to what they were doing. So I realized that I wasn't really writing about food anymore. So I call myself a travel writer because that's what I'm writing about.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, I feel comfortable with that, and it seems to be well received. So
sure. Well, it's funny because it's like all of those things can kind of basically be the same thing, but there is kind of like almost a hierarchy. Like whatever, writer is probably like towards the top, maybe bloggers a little bit lower, like influencers like the bottom rung for whatever reason. Whether or not that's agreeable or not, it's like okay, if you have influence, there's nothing wrong with, if you've earned that influence and like people read your blog and you can kind of influence what they're doing in a good way. I don't know. It is funny how that works, but it is like, even to me, I'm like, people call me an influencer. And I'm like, I mean, I guess, because it's like whatever, because Instagram's like the largest of the platforms I'm on, but like I do a lot of other stuff other than that. That's not.
But Landon, like you don't
influencer.
realize you're an influencer after a few things happen in a row, like multiple times. Like if someone reaches out to you, like they DM you on social or whatever, they're like, I did this because you told me, or you wrote about this, or you
Right.
said this, and then it converted into dollars spent in a local business, and you're like, I guess I'm a new influencer, right?
Yeah, and if that's what it means, yeah, it's like I love that, because that's what literally what it's all about. So that's, yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. Of all the platforms, whether it's blogging on your website or social media, where are you most active, and then what do you enjoy the most?
Well, I'm a social person. My 8th grade English teacher called me a social butterfly at her desk one day and told me to sit down and start getting back to work. So I would say social media is where I have the most fun, because I can instantly share information that brings value to people, whether it's like telling them something that they could do. Like last week I was in Winfield, and so people are like, oh, I haven't thought about going to Winfield. It's less than an hour from here lately. So social's fun. And, you know, I love taking pictures. I have some experience in photography. And so taught photography for a while. So I love showing those images off and the video off stuff. The writing is like when you get down to brass tacks, like when you've got to sit down and go through your itinerary that you went through and your notes, and you've got business cards that people handed you, and you're like, all right, let's do
the
this.
work. Yeah.
That's serious work. And I do take it serious. It's not just like something I just, cram out and then I'm like, okay, it's thanks for the pay, thanks for the check. Like I take it personally. So.
Oh, for sure. And you mentioned this is still kind of a side hustle. Or do you have a real job? That's what I always say. My real job is at Coke, but do you do this full time, or is this a side gig still?
I feel like it's becoming like, it's definitely 50-50.
Nice.
For sure. Yeah. Right. Ask me today. It's 50-50. When I quit my office job to go out on my own and establish the LLC, the idea was that the social media marketing that I do for small businesses in town, that's my bread and butter money.
Yeah.
And what I can hustle for, or that comes to me as far as travel writing, is a lot of fun.
No, I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. I think that's a good way to do it. I've done a little bit of kind of doing the social media management for a couple people in town, and that is a lot of work to do that too. So yeah.
As far as that work goes, I think it's evolving for me. Instead of doing so much as the daily like management, I've been doing social media marketing for years. I worked in an agency before I went out on my own doing the same work, and so my experience is I have that expertise to be more of a strategic partner.
Yeah.
And help you, coach you per se, versus like in the weeds, like answering customer service questions.
For sure. And I think, I don't know, I don't have any plans to get back into that side of things, but if I did, I would want to do it more like that, because doing the day-to-day is, even if you don't post if it's like 5 times a week or something, like it's kind of a lot of work to do, figure out the posts. And like, I don't know, you have to go take the pictures or get content from the businesses. It is a lot of work, but the strategic part, it's like, okay, I'm going to line it out for you, and this is what you need to do. Just follow what I'm saying, and it'll be successful. Yeah, for sure. One of the big reasons we are talking today is because you did write a book. So let's talk about that a little bit. What is your book about? What's the name of the book? Tell me a little bit about it.
So it's 100 Things to Do in Wichita Before You Die. And it's put out by Reedy Press. So 100 Things, that series encompasses a lot of cities and a lot of states across the United States. So I was just fortunate enough to be asked to write the Wichita book. I can't believe it wasn't written already. I don't know how it landed in my lap. I mean, I'm just feeling so lucky. Here we are, a mid-sized city, and I still can't. We have so many creative, talented writers in this town. So, but there's a Kansas one that's out. It's been out for about 6 months earlier than mine, and they're all over the United States. Just like San Francisco, Michigan, the Great Lakes,
everywhere. Yeah. Very cool. Did you ever think you'd actually like write a book?
No. I think when I was younger, I wanted to write like fiction stories, when you're young and you have such a creative mind. And if you're a writer, you're
Sure.
inclined to be like me to write, you make up characters and stuff. But like, I never once thought that, no.
Pretty
So
cool.
I'm very lucky. Yeah. I mean,
will you write another?
Oh, that's a question I get a lot. And I can't believe people are already asking me that. I hope so. That's the best answer I can give, is that I would be open to it. And that so my experience has been so far with this author gig life is that if you sell books, you'll be offered, it's just like anything else, you'll be offered to write another title. And so whether it's with this publisher, or I self-publish, or I find another publisher,
Yeah, makes sense.
Hope.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me about that process a little bit. So did they just like reach out via email? Did they call you? They're like, hey, we like your travel work. We have this series. We want you to write this. Like, what was that like? And I don't know, sure. What does that process look like?
So the process looks like, for my experience, was that I had done some writing for Visit Wichita. This is after blogging. This is after doing writing for other people in town. And a contact at Visit Wichita apparently had recommended me as a writer for this title to Reedy Press. Reedy Press emailed me, told me so, and said, would you be interested? Here's the criteria. This is the kind of person we're looking for. The criteria was, in the simplest form, is that you need to be living there. Hopefully you're native, that you can write well, and that you have the ability to market, or you have marketing experience. And so I ticked off all those boxes. Yeah. I thought about it for like, I don't know, 3 minutes. Like, okay, it's during COVID. Like, can I do this? It's the tail end of COVID. It might be doable because I can get out and about. So yes, I'll do it.
That's really cool. And then I'm really curious, like what your personal process is, like trying to pick 100 things to do. Like, how do you know what to leave off? What did you want to include? There's like big things you have to include or people would riot. And then there's like hole in the wall places. How did you line that out?
Well, your first instinct is to make a list, like in the notes of your cell phone, just like as you're sitting there thinking about it after your day job, like, or just, your thoughts when you're like sitting at a stoplight. Oh, this place. Oh, this place. And it comes to you instinctually because, like me or like you, I think you said you're from here, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Andover. Yep.
So we're from here. So we have like, oh, this is quintessential Wichita. This has to be in there.
Right.
Now revising the list took a couple, looks because it was COVID, and part of the book, food and drink. And, I mean, I had to be completely honest with myself. Like, is this going to be sustainable? Is this a sustainable business?
Right.
Other criteria I considered, which were important to me, the publisher does not tell you any of this stuff. They let you just do what you want, which is amazing freedom, but you have to like bring in the parameters, right?
Sure.
So one, for me, based on the title alone, it has to be within the Wichita city limits.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Andover. I'm not going to HI. I'm not going to Tanganyika. Like I'm not going to. And so that helps to bring it in. And then two is like, okay, I want to make a book that's for all budgets, all cultures, all ages, family, bachelor, bachelorette. Like I had to really think about every kind of audience. And so I feel like, okay. And on top of that, are you a local and you're bored? Are you a newcomer? You've lived here 2 years. I'm running into people out and about talking about this book, and they're like, well, I've lived here 2 years, but it was during COVID. Or I came here for a job 10 years ago, but I only stay on the west side.
Right.
And so I had to think like, okay, I've got all kinds of people.
Yeah.
In this pool of potential buyers of this book. So it was tough. And it was not.
I'm excited. I have not gotten my copy yet. I need to go get it, but I'm very excited to see what's in it and what's in it, what's not on it. I'm excited to see what you came up with.
Yeah. That's really exciting. My experience this last my first book signing was at a big event. It was a wine tasting. And so you see people like flipping through the book like I am right here. And they're from Wichita. And they're like, oh, of course. Oh yeah, I've done that. And you're just thinking, oh no, it doesn't apply to them. They don't want it. Because that's what you're thinking as a writer.
Sure.
Like, I want you to want it.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
No, I'm very excited. I'm sure I've been to some, but I'm sure there's a lot that I haven't been to.
Right.
So
then they get to the table of contents and they have no idea what this one place is or these 5 places are. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, I always like to pour some gasoline on the East versus West debate, because I think it's hilarious to get people riled up about that, because it's not that big of a deal, but people think it is. But I grew up in Andover.
Pastor, you're like, let's
exactly.
go.
Well, it's like I grew up on the East Side, so West was like any west of Rock. Like we just didn't go very far into town at all. We might go to the river sometimes, but like we never went to the West Side. So it's just funny to like, I don't know, poke fun at it. But that being said, there's a lot of stuff on the West Side I haven't done. So I'm excited to see.
No, I traveled all sides of town just to like double down on my research to make sure what I thought was true was true.
That's cool. That's awesome. You mentioned book signings. The book came out May 15th. So we're recording on what's today, June 7th. So it's almost been out a month. What do you have? You have more book signings coming up?
So many.
Yeah. What's that look like for the summer?
So an author sets up their own book signings and I went a little crazy with it. So starting on Thursday, I have a presentation at Kansas Aviation Museum for Senior Thursday.
Nice.
And I'm also selling books there. And then after that, like I don't have a Saturday free for the rest of the summer except for 2 Saturdays.
Wow.
In addition to that, I have some Thursdays like at the Poorhouse, or I have a Wednesday or whatever. So you can find me at like anywhere from like the Orpheum's movie screening night to like a brewery.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Art museum. I'm all over the place.
Very cool. Well, I'll be sure to kind of help promote those in the newsletter and everywhere else. So you get some more people out there. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question, and then we'll get into some kind of questions that I ask everybody. But do you have any recommendations for any like aspiring bloggers or aspiring writers? What would you tell people? Especially, I mean, you're a teacher, so I'm sure you did this a lot, but what kind of advice do you have for people?
Yeah. So my first bit of advice is just start. Like, don't think that you don't have a way in. Like, just get started and do what feels authentic to you. And there's always going to be an audience for that. Like if it's gaming, if it's like super niche down, like, you know, like whatever it is that you find interesting, there is an audience for that. So don't just write that off. Just get started with it, whether it's podcast or blog or whatever. And then the second thing is, if you're a writer, I didn't do this early enough. Like you need to hire someone to be your proof editor, you know, to proof edit your stuff.
Sure.
Or install Grammarly on your computer. Like, there's just like some housekeeping things that when you're new, you just don't think about. And so like really double down on those things.
That's great advice, especially for somebody that writes a newsletter twice a week, because I get so many emails about how bad my grammar is. So I need I'm at least going to install Grammarly. The problem is like I send the emails out Monday and Friday, and I'm typically writing the email at 10:30 or 11 p.m. So it's like, who am I going to ask to edit this right now?
People don't realize like it's a grind and you're passionate about it, but you're also like trying to kick it out quickly because you're
for sure,
the monster. The monster is the consumer, right?
Oh, for sure.
And every once in a while there's a typo and, you know, people let you know.
I got one last week that was I had it's, but with an apostrophe. And the email, literally, they didn't say anything other than there's no apostrophe in it's. And I'm like, thank you. I appreciate it, but thank you.
Thanks for reading my newsletter.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're a reader. Thank you. You proved my point. So, and then you responded. So that's an extra bonus. So, okay. So now these are some questions I kind of stole from like Tim Ferriss and a few other podcasts. So what is something you often recommend to people? It can be books, podcasts, music, anything. What is something you often recommend?
Getting out of your house.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to podcasts just like anybody else, like when I'm working or I'm on the road driving or whatever. I don't really have one per se. I would just say like, for me, it's really important to like, even if you're going to your usual neighborhood, that you just try something new. Like whatever small thing that's new for your brain to fire off those, you know, those discoveries, just to do that.
No, I love that. What is your favorite failure? in any aspect of your life? I got some deep ones coming, so get ready.
I'm interested to hear what other people have said. I don't think I've listened to every podcast yet.
This is usually a good one to stump people a little bit, but
yeah, do they like roll their eyes and freak out like I did? Okay. What's the failure that
what is your favorite failure? It can be in any aspect of your life.
I mean, I didn't get a job right out of college that I wanted. I don't know if that was a failure on my part / economy was horrible when I graduated KU. A lack of motivation sometimes. I don't know, like not marketing myself to the right magazine publishers or whatever. It took a little while to find my path.
Yeah.
That's okay, because along the way I learned like my resilience, and that I still was like true to like what I wanted to do, and I eventually got back to it. So I'd say like it was invaluable lessons.
No, absolutely. And you'd probably be a different person had you not kind of taken that other route. So that's important. Yeah. Kind of the flip side of that, what is your definition of success?
Oh, if I wake up in the morning and I think I don't mind going to work today. I mean, I look forward to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I look forward to going to work today.
No, I think that's important.
I think I've been in a lot of different places in my life where it's just like, all right, I'm content with it, but I don't love it.
Right.
Or I really don't love this at all, and I'm just getting through it. And I'm at that place now in my 40s where I carved my own path based on my previous experiences and learning things along the way, that I'm able to wake up and say, win or lose today, like I'm good.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. What is, or tell me about a life motto you live by, or what is some of the best advice that you've received?
Oh, best advice, life motto. I've been writing in the books when I personalize them, stay curious, carpe diem. I think carpe diem is probably just like, that Latin phrase for like seize the day. Mm-hmm. Like it really just applies to every moment, because like you can make the best of most moments if you just train yourself to have a different perspective about it.
Yeah.
Which is really hard. That takes a lot of years of experience and like self-awareness.
For sure.
But I really like that one because it can apply to anything in any moment. Any kind of person can think that way.
No, I agree. I think between that and One Delightful Life, I think you nail that point though. I agree.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I mean, think about work tomorrow when you go to work and you pull up your chair to your desk and you're ready to get started. You log in, like it's just a different, like no matter what happens today, I'm going to find something good about this day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. What is a habit that you've developed over the past few years that's most improved your life?
Oh my gosh. Like, when did you write these questions? Oh my God.
I stole most of these, so I can't take credit for all of them,
but. Okay. So I take my work pretty seriously. Oftentimes bosses would tell me I take it like way too seriously. So I had to find a habit would be to like to take a break, to take a breather. And as a writer, you need to like completely step away from I'm sitting here in front of a computer where I sat all day. Like I have to get away from this environment. Mm-hmm. And like the sun hit my face, go talk to somebody, like I have to go do something else. Oftentimes I find that actually makes me a better writer. Like I'll start brainstorming. Oh, I want to put that in my presentation. I want to write that for a client. So it helps me. So just taking those midday breaks has been amazing.
No, I think it definitely helps. Like you get kind of a fresh set of eyes on it later on, and it definitely helps.
Yeah. Have you ever gone back to like what you're ready for a newsletter and you're like, no, like I'm going to completely revamp that whole section?
Right. Well, typically what I try to do, since I write it so late and I don't have a chance to really look it over well the night before, I usually go work out pretty early in the morning. So it's like, I'll read through it once in the morning, just to like real quickly kind of skim through. I'm like, oh, wow, there's like 5 things in the first paragraph. Yeah. So I do get kind of one look over at least, but yeah, that's about as the extent of the editing that I do. But
we're just like brainstorming when you're driving your car and you're like thinking about like who you want to interview, what you want to research. It's like,
exactly. All right, we are back. All right, so I just have a couple questions now about Wichita, So you're the person to talk to apparently with the big book. So
Yes.
what is your favorite part of Wichita, or what's a hidden gem in Wichita?
I think a lot of the hidden gems are when you like park your car at a park and you just get out and walk. The other day I discovered that like the mosaic tile sundial exhibit. I mean, that's just like over there. I think it's in Riverside Park.
Yeah, yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Or last Friday I was over at KU Med Center for first Friday, art gallery crawl.
Mhm.
We were leaving the parking lot. I said, wait, stop the car, take me across the street, Caddy Corner, 9th in Minnesota, right there. There's
Okay.
a art exhibit. It seemed to be fairly new, and it's about African-American history and connecting from the Dunbar Historic Theater, different part of the neighborhood, pulling the neighborhoods together. You don't, I think for hidden gems, like I could easily say, oh, go to this one place.
Sure.
Lots of places in the city like that.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah,
to
there's a
stay
ton.
there. You have to be willing to go like drive over to them. They're there.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
very
Uh,
about that.
yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you are familiar with Rolf Potts, but he grew up in Wichita as well, and he's kind of like a world-renowned, best-selling world travel author. He wrote Vagabonding, but so I interviewed him early on, probably like 4 years ago now. But his thing was like, no matter where you're at, you need to kind of explore wherever you're at, like kind of like you just mentioned, but like you're like a tourist, or like there's no reason you shouldn't act like a tourist and go visit or walk around Wichita like you would like if you
Right.
went to Europe and you're going to walk through and try out all the coffee shops and try out the different shops and the food
Yeah.
places and everything else. Like there's no reason we shouldn't treat Wichita like that, because like we were just talking about, I'm an East Sider. There's a ton of places on the West Side. I could go spend days or weeks and still not hit everything. So it's like, why am I not exploring that like I would another
And you
bigger
were
city?
kind of on the north side, so like take advantage of that north end, right?
Exactly.
Or go south of Kellogg. I
Right.
was in that, and just park your car and go in and eat somewhere that you've never eaten before.
Yeah.
That's how I discovered some of the places that are in the book.
That's awesome. I love that. Is there anything you wish Wichita had that it doesn't, or what would you improve about Wichita?
Yeah, so you are asking a question I've been getting a lot in the last week.
Okay.
I've really thought about my initial answer. So I still hold true that Wichita needs another amusement park.
Okay.
Okay, I feel like we need more family-friendly, outdoorsy places. So that would also include like a big complex.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for the things that Exploration Place is about to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a nod to like the Gathering Place in Tulsa.
Sure.
You haven't been there?
I haven't been there, but I've looked into it more because I agree. I think Wichita needs something like that.
Yeah, I'm excited for Pickleplex. I saw you wrote about that in your newsletter.
Yeah.
There's something happening in Derby, although that's not the Wichita city limits per se.
Sure. No, but that stuff's cool. And just a side note, Derby is exploding. It's really cool to see, because like again, growing up in Andover, there's nothing in Andover. There's schools and there's like 2 restaurants. Derby, it's its own little thriving community, and it's cool to see all the different stuff. But yeah, regardless of it's
Did you not go to the Andover Festival? It's happening anytime now. It's amazing.
Like Greater Andover Days?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't been in a few years, but I grew up going to that. My parents would drop us off and we'd go ride the squirrel cages and the Ferris wheel and everything. Yeah. We love that.
So, I had the same feelings about Joyland, right?
Yeah.
School theme nights or whatever at Joyland. So I feel like we need more outdoorsy things to go do that can incorporate all ages. And what I like about the Gathering Place in Tulsa, it's centered on health and wellness. Yes, there's food trucks once a week that show up and pull up. However, there's a lot of exercise being had.
Sure.
Right? I think
that's cool.
That would be
cool.
We
need to make a little family trip down there, because I need to check that out. I've heard a lot of people recommend that. So I'll come back and push that a little bit harder on the city officials to see if we can get something done.
I'll join you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. What does Wichita mean to you?
It's everything. It's home. It's where I feel the most comfortable. It's where I love to be. It's where I always want to come home to. Like I love Wichita because we are a hub and we can fly out to a lot of places very easily. But for me, it's comfort. It's everything.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that's been the common theme. I don't know if anyone hasn't said the word home when I ask them that. And so I love to hear that. I need to make a compilation of just everybody saying home, because it's really cool to hear. I mean, a lot of the people, or I mean, all the people that I'm interviewing are doing really cool things or have done really cool things in Wichita.
Mhm.
And it's cool to see everybody kind of have that affinity for Wichita, whether they still live here or not. So I love to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure.
Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find your book? Where can people find you?
Thank you for asking. And thank you for this time. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
So the book is available for sale in all the independent bookstores in Wichita. Of course, you can find it everywhere books are sold. A lot of the museums that are mentioned in the book are selling it in their gift shop, which I'm thankful for. And you can find it at all my book signings this summer. I have multiple signings from June to August, and you just go to Facebook and look up 100 Things Wichita. That page has its own events tab.
Perfect. Very cool. Awesome. Thanks again, Vanessa. Have a good one. And I'm excited to go pick up your book.
Thank you. I'm ready to personalize it for you.
Perfect. Have a good one. See ya.
Bye.